didn't film an intro out in the shop, so doing it here at bed in the middle of the night. In this video, we're doing some carry bearing work. We're finishing the rear of the chassis, which is a big cargo area I'm pretty excited about, and a little bit of bump stop work. So really 3 jobs I've been avoiding, and all of them came together pretty nicely. So check it out. Mounting the front drive shaft carrier bearing. So to get started, I've run a string from the center of the yoke, and I've got this end. It's got a plumb bob that I can hold to the center of this, and then I'm going to Sharpie mark on that tube where the string intersects, and that's going to, sorry, I don't know, there's glare coming through the window over there, but that's going to tell me exactly where center line of the drive shaft needs to be. So I'll mark that. Then the next thing we're going to do is measure angles of the yoke. This one's centered up with the Sharpie mark I made from the string line. Now, I'm not doing a CV drive shaft here. I'm doing a single joint on either end, which should work based on the angles not being very aggressive here. But this is about 3 degrees up. You see if I bring it down, I can zero it out there basically. It's 3 degrees up. So this one needs to be 3 degrees down. Let's see, just on my initial mock-up here. I gotta find a better way to hold this, just a minute. All right, we're looking at 88.55, just for, so that was down 2.5 degrees. That's fantastic. So I know that this actually needs to go up ever so slightly because when you spin the yoke, it hits the tube. So I need to make this just a little bit taller to clear this tube, but not much. And then I'll see what that angle is going to be. That's kind of fixed. And then here, I can probably fine tune with the caster or see how it sweeps. I believe the carrier bearing needs to be bushing mounted to keep vibration out of the chassis and just keep help the bearing live if there's a little bit of imbalance. Not totally sure that's a fact, but that's how I've seen it done in the past. So that's what I'm going to do. I went to my bin of bushings that I got from a buddy years ago, and I have all forms of bushings, but I don't have that many pairs of bushings with the right diameter that I want to slide into a tube. So eventually I found these two. Don't mind the little trimmings there, but these fit nicely into my 1.5" 090 DOM that I had a little bit left of. So cut those down. This is 2 1/4 inches, and basically we're going to put these down in the chassis under there. Whoop. Down in there somewhere. We'll come back for a better view. And mount them on tabs, and then I'm going to build the cross member mount for the drive shaft on top of it. All right, here's a good shot of what we're looking at. Tabs from the tab collection, which I've been hoarding for this project because I knew I'd need them. These nuts will get welded on there. This through bolt will get a split washer, as you can see there. And then this will give me a structure to build off of for the top mount. I think this is gonna work. So I'll take these apart, weld the nuts on with the bushings out, then get them back in there. Make sure they're all even front to back. So picture my 2 bushings like this. Let's say that. I just measured from the center of the ones in the car. They're 3 9/16 apart. So let's say something like that. And I know the diameter of the tube is 1.5 inches. So I want to mark these at 3 9/16 apart, drill the holes with a hole saw, an 1.5 inch hole saw. And then I'm going to set the height of this mounting height to where I want it to be for the height of the drive shaft. And I'm actually going to set it a little bit low, hopefully, so that I can shim it up if needed, because I can always add plate to the top of this if I need it up 1/8 of an inch to get the degree, or up 3/16 of an inch. All right, use my speed square. I've got a 1/2 inch line drawn on the top because that's the part of the metal that I want to remain as the top of this bracket. Then I can measure down from there 3/4 of an inch, which gives me 1.5 inch center line. So I'll mark that. Now I'm going to slide this down till we are 3 9/16 away from that mark. Make my speed square, trace my line down, mirror this up. There goes nothing. to do that. Here's the other side. So this side's going to be the outside of the belly here. These are my markers, going to cut up like that across the top. Should capture a good portion of the bushing. Over here, it's a little bit different because the carrier bearing center line is close to here. But there's tubes in here in the chassis, so that's why the bushings can't be there. So it needs a section that hangs over, and that's going to be this right there. So let's cut it and then get in there and we can fine tune. Here's what we got. Let's go see if it fits. So because there's more than half the circle there, you actually have to take the bushings off, slide the tube in, and look, it holds itself even without any weld on there. That's pretty cool, as long as I drilled them right. Drive shaft back in. You can start to see the vision here. So there's our plate there, tacked in place. Now it doesn't line up perfectly with this. I knew it wouldn't because there's no space to put it in there. I don't care, it's gonna be just fine. Because, as you can see, yoke is sitting on the tube. This still has air gap, so we're good. We built it shorter than it needs to be. So that allows me to now build I have 1/4 inch, so I'll probably build a 1/4 inch top plate that will go between here. That's going to also capture the bolts that are going to be on there. And that's going to give us some of our spacing. Just a reminder, we're right about 3 degrees, 2.75 up here. So we're hoping this is about that down. Look at that. So we want it to go up. Well, it could stand to go down 1/2 degree or so, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that's pretty darn good. It just clears that tube. So let's figure out how to attach all this stuff. Burned her all together. It's not falling apart. Next thing, I'm gonna put the bushings back in it. I'm gonna put the drive shaft back in, do the whole thing and remark the tops, which I'd done previously, but the welding burned off the marks. And that's where I'm gonna need to drill, and I think I'm gonna tap for the studs going in. I'm not sure yet. Fresh marks are made. Let's pull it back out. So I drilled 5/8 holes down, knowing it was gonna get right into the middle of the plate. And then I used a carbide burr and opened that up a little bit. This side easy, you could just do that with an angle grinder, but you can see I can slide my 1/2 inch nut in there. Boop. Just right so it fits. I can lock it down and weld the nut on. This one might need to get a little bit deeper, but that's okay. So I'm gonna weld this one on and then we're gonna keep test fitting that. And the idea here being is the bushing is bolted into the chassis, carrier bearing goes in there, and I just run the 2 bolts with some washers and lock washers on them right down into the fine thread grade 8 nuts. Should work. Still need to finish up a couple of things on this bracket here, but it gives you the basic gist. Now what I'm finding puzzling is the NP231 will not shift. So I'm hoping there's not something catastrophic inside there. That lever moves just 1 click in either direction and everything stays locked together, which it should be 2-wheel drive, 4 high, neutral, or 4 low. So there's no 2 shift positions that should be locked right next to each other. So I don't know what the deal is with that. Took some time off wrenching in the garage. I can confirm it won't build itself. So you can tell my hair is growing, looking like a fuzzball, but I'm planning not to cut it till I get this thing done. So tonight, we're starting to work on my rear bump pad extensions. They look a little bit unconventional because they're going to be so wide, but the bump stop pad mounts high off the axle. The more articulation you get, the more sweep that bump stop can have. So this is what it's going to be. Another cool feature I got here, my buddy Chuck brought me this. It's a pod light that mounts to a Milwaukee battery, so I expect it to last a long time. And it does a good job giving me a nice side light when I'm doing metal work. I really like it. Thanks, Chuck. Worth noting, the ARC Captain, still getting the job done. Just a couple of spots, but clean that up here. Start of it here. I think I'm gonna full droop the other side and we'll see where this bump pad looks. All right, so this gives you a scale of the challenge here. So that is about full droops. Technically the shock's not even fully extended, but that's as far as I'd limit strap it. And you see the bump stop that used to land there is now all the way out here. And some of that is just the height of putting the bump stop to land on this pad or on top of the upper link mount with that much separation. But let's see if I can subtract anything off of here and still have some margin, which I think I can. A little plumb bob action here. Right now it's landing, let me get you a good camera angle. It's gonna land right about here, so I could probably take ½ inch to a full inch off of it, which will shorten this up a little bit, and then we'll work on. That's looking about right. The bump pads are pointed. They'll land right about there. And this is set up as if it were to fully compress that air bump, which with a sway bar and a side hit like this, pretty unlikely. When you land a jump and it's landing back in the meat of the pad, that's where you're most likely to really compress it or hit a big whoop or whatever. So happy with that. So I'm gonna tack that in, and then I'll show you what I got planned for the support structure here to tie it back into this link bracket or into the axle tube. Busted out the old bender here. And I know that this radius is right about how I made the radius on my bump plates. So I can do a little something like this. So let's make some marks. We'll probably tack it on the other one and then I'll trim from there maybe. So that's my 3/4 inch by 1/4 inch flat strap that I wrapped around there. Used the die, and then I welded the bottom of it in sections and then hammered it to where I could get it to fit just how I wanted it. Now I need to notch this corner a little bit to get it under this top plate, and that'll help them tie together real nice. I'll do the same over here. So let's mark that, see how much I need to take out of it, and get it to slip under there. See, it keys in there real nice. Welded the top plate, we'll weld the bottom. We'll get it lined up and tacked on for now, but it should look nice. Both sides tacked on. We'll do the finish work and reinforcement later. But this will give me a chance to be able to cycle everything without it all falling off. Happy with that. Looks a little funny, but it's gonna work right. Seems like a good time to start tackling a project I've been avoiding. This is my Artec cork crate. I'm gonna cut all the previous tabs off of it, and we're gonna build a new home at the back of the car. Cargo section falling into place. What's the point of this thing? The point of this thing is to fit the cork crate, which I'll show you how that mocks up. Tool bags, maybe some bins, but the tools and spare parts get heavy in a hurry. So getting this weight down low keeps with my center of gravity theme. And you might think to yourself, gee whiz, it hangs so low, it's gonna hit the ground all the time. Well, keep in mind the axle is at full stuff. Normally it's gonna be 10 inches further down. And car is basically at ride height. This is higher than the belly considerably. And then the back of the tire is gonna come basically flush with the body right here. So will it hit the ground occasionally? Yes. Will it get hung up on it and hit a lot? I really don't think so. Building this out of 1.5" tubing, keeping the weight down. But back here is 1 3/4" DOM, just because that's the point that might get hit in the ground. So now I need to finish out the structure here, Here's an idea of what we're gonna have down here. Tool roll, tool bag, cork crate, obviously. And then I've got some height, so I might be able to find a bin, like a pack out or something that'll fit underneath all those. But keeping that weight low. Don't mind the fender disconnected over there. Put on a little bit of the containment setup for our rear cargo bay. Got some 2-inch flat bar here, 1.5-inch holes drilled in it, dimple die. Yeah, it should be straightening out pretty nice. That'll work. It's just to help hold some crap back there. Next up, took some angle iron, coped it to where it sits on the top of this tube, but down at the bottom of this tube, because I wanted this cork crate to sit at a bit of an angle, which will give me more room to get the lid open, get stuff out of there. Plenty of room back here. This is also going to give me a spot to put my tab for tie-down straps. I'll put one here, one there, it's out of the way, and that'll let me run a nice good pull strap or two across the bags and gets this tucked in nice on the front. Crate's in solid. We got a tab down there on the front. We got one here at the back. Stainless button heads are on the inside of the thing, so they're not gonna interfere with quartz or anything out like that. Feels pretty solid. If it needs more tabs, I can add them later, but feels pretty good to me. So next, let's work on the cargo tray for this part of the operation. Cargo tray getting started. Let's dust it off the old sheet metal brake. So this is going to be the lip at the back of the car. This is coming up where the diff is, but I want to do it in 2 bends so I can get as much cargo space as possible. So let's go see how that looks. Pulled the cork crate out again so I could get this. It's wider currently than what will actually fit the slot, because once I get it close, I'm going to notch here and here to suck it in around the tubes just a little bit up on this surface. So it's on that. But just visualizing what my bend looks like, clearing the differential. Second bend went on. You can see it's right, almost exactly at the angle of the diff there, but it's sitting on the tab on the other side. So I think it's time to notch around this tube and this tube, suck it over. That will set it down a little bit more. And we'll see how close we are on this back angle. Coming along really nice. Loving that brake tool I made. Aluminum making my life easy here. Just cut the hole in, had the pilot where it's close enough. Steel would probably break the pilot bit, but aluminum went right through. So I'm gonna do the other one, and then I'll file them and fit them and stuff. Got our tray coped in there. Fits behind the diff with a little bit of room to spare. Happy with that. I could put just a tickle more bend on the bottom one there. I might do that, we'll see. But ultimately it does fit. It's tool bags, nice and happy. So clean these up, get it squared up just how I like it, and see where we go. Probably getting as tired of this camera angle as I am at looking from it from this angle, but we're in the corner of the shop. I am super, super happy with how this turned out. I think this thing is just cool. Tool bags, tool rolls, a Blackstone little skillet. It's practically an overlander here, and this is my tailgate tube. Tubes will get capped and all that kind of stuff, so don't worry about those. One more interesting perspective here is as a reminder, the tire is going to be sitting up here, and a good chunk of it's going to come down here. So I suspect with all the wheels on this thing, you're barely even going to see these back here, but should still be able to fish them out under the tire real nice and easy, hopefully. I'm not getting that involved on the dimple die work here, but figured I owe it to myself to at least throw a couple in here. So add a little bit of rigidity to the pan. So we're out here in the misty rain at night, getting it done. Just a little bit of tasteful dimple dieage. With that, cargo tray is done. 1, 2, 3. This thing is absolutely solid as a rock. engaged on tubes here, here, and here. I cut half a dimple die out and was able to die it because I left a little more than half. So it was like 60%. Flap wheeled it a little bit just to fit this tab perfectly. Mashed it on the other side. This one's got some angles so I can get a hook through it. This one's up nice and straight because we got the room, why not? So this will be able to run a pull strap or a ratchet strap. Super duper solid. No debris getting in there. Very, very happy with the cargo area. I might wrap this video up here. I know it's gonna be a quick one, but it's been a while and this is pretty fun. I've got a bunch of fuel system parts, fittings, and things like that on order. Should be here in a week or so, and we'll start adding a fuel pump to a fuel system, which I guess you need that kind of thing.